You think 8 months at sea meant starvation, disease, and desperation for pirates? Actually, they had figured out how to live better than kings during those voyages. While merchant sailors were dying of scurvy in week 3, pirate crews were still lifting cannons in month 8. They had turned the deadliest environment on Earth into their home. Let's start with the most basic question. What did they even eat? Salted beef and pork were the main foods pirates ate during their long months at sea. But here's the thing. This meat went bad fast. The tropical heat and humidity turned what should have been dinner into something that smelled worse than a fish market in summer. Pirates had to eat it anyway because starving was worse than eating meat that had seen better days. Then there were the hardtack biscuits that became a pirate's daily nightmare and constant companion. These weren't your grandma's soft cookies. They were rock-hard squares that could probably crack teeth if you bit them wrong. Most of the time, these biscuits were crawling with weevils, tiny bugs that made themselves at home in the grain. Pirates learned to tap their biscuits on the table before eating them, hoping most of the extra protein would crawl away before dinner time. Some pirates even made a game of counting how many bugs fell out. Fresh fruits and vegetables, those were a luxury that lasted maybe 2 weeks into the voyage. After that, pirates said goodbye to anything green and hello to a diet that would make a modern nutritionist faint. No vitamins, no minerals, just salt and regret that followed them everywhere they went. But cooking was another challenge entirely that tested everyone's patience daily without any mercy. Most of the time, pirates ate their food cold because lighting a fire on a wooden ship surrounded by gunpowder was asking for trouble. The ship's cook had one of the most dangerous jobs on board, not because of enemy pirates, but because one spark could turn dinner prep into an unplanned fireworks show. When regular food ran out, pirates got creative with their menu choices and desperation grew stronger. Fish became a treat when they could catch them near shore. Rats weren't just pests anymore. They became emergency rations. When your belt starts looking like a snack, you know the food situation has gotten desperate. Food storage presented constant problems that plagued every voyage without fail or exception of any kind. Everything went into wooden barrels, but these containers leaked like sieves. Seawater seeped through the wood, contaminating whatever was inside. But the real question wasn't what they ate, it was where they managed to sleep after choking down all that awful food. Hammocks were the beds of choice for pirates, and for good reason that became clear after one night at sea. These fabric slings hung below deck like oversized cocoons, swaying with every wave. Space was precious on a pirate ship, and hammocks could be rolled up during the day and strung up at night. They were like the world's first space-saving furniture, except instead of fitting in a tiny apartment, they fit in a floating wooden box. The sleeping quarters were basically floating dungeons that nobody wanted to visit for long periods of time. Dark, damp spaces that smelled like wet socks and rotting fish, with the constant creaking of wood and the sound of water sloshing against the hull. Pirates probably missed fresh air more than they missed solid ground. The stench was so thick you could almost taste it with every breath you took. Then there was the privacy issue that plagued every crew member aboard the vessel day and night. Most crew members had no personal space whatsoever. Only the captain and maybe a few officers got small private spaces. Personal space was about as rare as a hot meal and twice as valuable. But sleep came in shifts because someone always had to be awake to watch for danger approaching from any direction. Pirates couldn't just close their eyes and sleep for 8 hours straight. They grabbed rest when they could, often just a few hours at a time. The ocean never slept, so neither could they. Let's not forget about the unwelcome roommates that made every night an adventure nobody wanted to experience. Rats and insects were creatures that never paid rent, but made themselves at home in the sleeping areas. Pirates went to bed wondering if they'd wake up sharing their sleeping space with something that had more legs than they did. Cockroaches scurried across sleeping faces, and spiders made webs in corners. During storms, sleep was basically impossible for anyone trying to get rest and comfort below deck. The ship pitched and rolled like a carnival ride nobody wanted to be on. Pirates were woken up for their watch duties by bells or shouted orders. There was no gentle alarm clock or snooze button. After a terrible night's sleep, pirates still had to face a full day of backbreaking work. Daily life on a pirate ship followed a strict schedule that would make a military drill sergeant proud of the organization and discipline. Every crew member had specific jobs to do, and slacking off wasn't an option when everyone's survival depended on keeping the ship running. Pirates might have been outlaws on land, but at sea, they were more organized than most legitimate businesses. Deck swabbing was one of those jobs that never ended, no matter how much effort was put in by the crew. Saltwater, bird droppings, and general grime built up constantly. It was like trying to keep a house clean while the house was constantly being splashed with ocean water. Pirates took turns with the mop and brush, trying to keep their floating home from becoming disgusting. Then there was sail mending, which happened almost daily throughout the voyage and required constant attention from skilled hands. Pirates would hang from the rigging like circus performers, threading thick needles with coarse thread while the ship swayed beneath them. One wrong move and you'd get a much closer look at the ocean than anyone wanted. But lookout duties were rotated in patterns to prevent fatigue and keep everyone alert for potential threats from all directions. Being the lookout was probably the only job where falling asleep could get everyone killed instead of just yourself. The crow's nest was lonely and uncomfortable, but it offered the best view of approaching ships. Cooking fell to different crew members on rotation, though nobody particularly enjoyed the thankless task of preparing meals. Someone had to prepare the terrible food they were stuck eating. Navigation was serious business that required skill and knowledge. Pirates used sextants, compasses, and star charts to figure out where they were and where they were going. Weapon training and boarding practice happened regularly to keep skills sharp for upcoming battles and potential raids. During downtime, pirates found ways to entertain themselves. Gambling, singing, and carving helped pass the long hours between work shifts. Keeping the ship running was just part of the challenge. The real skill was in keeping it seaworthy. Ship maintenance was a never-ending fight against the ocean's determination to destroy everything it touched without mercy or compassion. Pirates had to be carpenters, sailmakers, and engineers all rolled into one because there was no calling for help when you were hundreds of miles from land. The sea didn't offer customer service or warranty repairs. Sail repairs happened high above the deck while hanging from ropes in dangerous conditions that tested courage and skill. Pirates would dangle from the rigging like spiders, sewing up tears in the canvas with thick needles and coarse thread. One moment of lost concentration, and you'd be testing whether pirates could fly. The work was exhausting and terrifying, especially during windy conditions when the sails whipped around violently. But rope maintenance was crucial because everything on a ship depended on rigging working properly at all times without fail. When ropes broke, pirates had to splice them back together or replace them entirely. Pirates became experts at making old rope act like new rope, which required more skill than most people realize. Hull repairs were the most critical job of all when the ship took damage from battles or storms that threatened survival. When the ship's wooden sides got holes, pirates had to patch them fast before the ocean invited itself inside. They used oakum, tarred fiber that expanded when wet, along with rags and hot pitch to seal the gaps. It was like trying to fix a leaky bucket while the bucket was still underwater. Then there was careening, which was a major operation that happened when pirates could beach their ship safely on shore for maintenance. They would tilt the entire vessel on its side to clean barnacles and seaweed off the bottom. This process took days and left the crew vulnerable to attack. Barrels got repurposed constantly because they were too valuable to waste in any circumstance whatsoever on the ship. The ship's carpenter was the most valuable crew member when it came to major repairs. Pirates reused everything metal they could find. Even the best-maintained ship was useless without a crew that knew how to work together. Pirates operated on a profit-sharing system that was surprisingly fair for a bunch of criminals roaming the seas and stealing treasure. Everyone got paid based on their role and the share agreement they voted on before starting their voyage. It was like a workplace democracy, except the workplace floated and everyone carried weapons. Captains typically received 1.5 to 2 shares of any loot they captured during successful raids on merchant ships. Quartermasters, who handled daily operations and discipline, often got the same amount or sometimes even more. The quartermaster was like the ship's middle manager, making sure everyone did their jobs while the captain worried about the big decisions. Regular crew members got 1 share each, which was the baseline payment for doing their part faithfully throughout the dangerous voyage. But specialists like surgeons or navigators could earn 1.25 shares or more for their skills. Pirates understood that some jobs were worth more than others, especially when those skills could mean the difference between reaching port and becoming fish food. Then there was injury compensation built into the system for those who suffered in battle or accidents during their service. Losing a leg might earn a pirate 800 pieces of 8, while losing an arm was worth slightly less. Pirates had the world's first workplace injury insurance, except it was funded by stealing from other people. Major decisions were made by vote, including whether to attack specific ships or replace a captain who wasn't working out properly. The Pirate Code was a set of rules that crews agreed on before sailing. These rules covered everything from how to divide loot to what happened if someone was caught stealing from their own crew. When pirates captured a ship, the loot got divided quickly and in full view of everyone to prevent disputes and arguments. But punishments for breaking the code were severe. Theft from crewmates could result in whipping or being left on a deserted island. All the organizations in the world couldn't protect pirates from the health problems that came with life at sea. Scurvy was the most feared disease on pirate ships, and it turned grown men into walking medical disasters within months of sailing. This condition came from not eating enough vitamin C, which was impossible to get after the first few weeks at sea. Pirates' gums would bleed, their teeth would fall out, and old wounds would reopen like they were made of cheap thread. But toothaches were treated with the kind of dental care that would make modern dentists faint in horror and disbelief. Pirates used pliers or knives to yank out problem teeth, with maybe some rum to dull the pain. The ship's dentist was whoever had the steadiest hands and strongest stomach for screaming. Infections were serious business when you were hundreds of miles from any real medical help or proper supplies that could save lives. Pirates treated infected wounds with hot tar, alcohol, or in extreme cases, amputation. Sometimes the cure was worse than the disease, but dead pirates never complained about losing body parts. Amputations were performed by whoever was available and brave enough to try the dangerous procedure without proper training or equipment. Usually this meant the cook, the carpenter, or anyone else who was good with sharp tools. Pirates learned that cutting off infected body parts was better than dying from infection, even if the surgery was done by someone whose main job was preparing dinner. Freshwater shortages led to dehydration and kidney problems that could kill as surely as any sword thrust through the heart. Skin diseases spread quickly in the hot, humid conditions below deck. Sunburn and heat stroke were constant threats for men who spent long hours working on deck without protection. Most pirate ships had no trained doctors at all, relying instead on folk remedies and desperate hope for survival. Medical knowledge came from experience, stories, and trial and error. Even with all these health problems, pirates found ways to keep their spirits up during the long months at sea. Music was the soundtrack of pirate life, with fiddles, drums, and singing filling the air during work and rest times throughout the day. Sea shanties weren't just entertainment. They helped coordinate work by keeping everyone in rhythm during heavy tasks. Pirates discovered that singing together made hauling heavy ropes and raising sails easier, like having a beat to march to. Dice games and card games were popular ways to pass the time during calm weather and endless ocean stretches without any excitement. Pirates would gather in circles, betting their shares of future loot or personal possessions. Gambling was risky when you were stuck on a floating box with the people you owed money to, but exotic pets became common on pirate ships after successful raids on merchant vessels carrying unusual cargo from distant foreign lands. Parrots, monkeys, and cats from captured vessels provided entertainment and companionship during long voyages. Pirates were probably the first people to figure out that pets made long trips more bearable, even if the pets came with someone else's name tags. Superstitions ruled pirate behavior in ways that would seem strange to modern people living in scientific times and rational thinking. Whistling on deck could bring bad winds, women aboard meant bad luck, and killing seabirds was asking for trouble. Pirates were tough enough to fight naval warships, but scared enough of bad luck to follow weird rules about whistling. Then there were special rituals that marked important moments like crossing the equator or surviving dangerous storms that tested everyone's courage and resolve. Ghost stories and tales of sea monsters were passed around like currency during long night watches. Some pirates renamed their ships or avoided saying certain words at sea. But books and maps captured from other ships were shared treasures that got read aloud to the crew during quiet evenings below deck. Drinking contests and mock trials provided entertainment during long stretches at sea when boredom threatened to drive everyone crazy. The culture that developed on pirate ships was part survival strategy, part entertainment, and part family bond that held crews together through hardship. These men created their own society with its own rules, entertainment, and beliefs, all while living in one of the most dangerous environments on Earth.